Greetings, family. Greetings. Lovely to see you here again. For those of you that don't know me, my name is June Allen, and I am a trauma therapist. I am the therapist, and I'm also a business coach and retreat facilitator. So today, I want to talk to you about what safety looks like for Black mothers and daughters. Now, I have it's Mother's Day in the UK in a few weeks' time. And yeah, I'm just thinking about the best way that I can serve my community around this. A lot of people know me for creating this content and for talking about this content. I've been talking about this content for years around, the relationship with Black mothers and wounded daughters, where the relationship is very difficult. So I'm trying to find other topics that I haven't really talked about. When we talk about safety quite a lot, generally in the wellness spaces, being in relationships with friends or romantic relationships or whatever, and the topic of safety always comes up. So I thought, you know what, let me just define or give you an opportunity to explore exactly what safety looks like in mother-daughter relationships, because then that will give you an opportunity to really think about actually, me and my mum are like this or not like that, or maybe I'm like this and my mum's like that. And in doing that, then it will give you an opportunity to actually get some clarity around what you actually need. If you don't know what you need in a relationship, you're not going to be able to vocalize it and you're not going to be able to take action around how you want to tackle the relationship, around how you want to manage things. So it's really important for you to understand what your needs are in order to move forward with what you want out of the relationship, if you can get anything out of the relationship, because relationships takes two people. All right, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So, if there's anything that I share today, if you want to find out more about the Managing Mother's Day retreat that I'm going to be doing on the 7th of March, on Saturday, the 7th of March in Brixton, you can click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So, before I get into the content, there are three requests I have, okay? Number one, if you have any questions about anything that I share in today's podcast, you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. This is not therapy. It's not a substitute for therapy. Okay. It's therapeutic content. It's information to support you, but it's not therapy. Obviously, if you would like to, I do have some spaces available. If you would like to work with me in therapy, then you can also find the details about how you can do that, by going to the link in my bio also. And the third thing is, if you know anybody or if you find this content really, really helpful and you know somebody else that might find it useful, then please share it with them. Okay, please share it with them because I know this content around the Black mother wound and stuff like that. There's still a lot of stigma in our community around around talking about it. Okay. So what I found is that a lot of people do watch my content around the mother wound. And, a lot of times I end up working with people because I end up talking about a lot of topics around this specific topic that, people are afraid to say, or they can't always articulate it or name what they feel, and how they feel about certain situations. And so they end up binge watching a load of stuff on my channels, and then they end up, reaching out to me and they want to work with me because I end up, talking about this stuff. And not only do I talk about this from a therapist perspective, okay, I've had my own personal experiences. Those of you that know me and that have been following me for a while know that, I have had my own challenges with my relationship with my mum as well over the years. And so I'm not just talking about these topics from a clinical perspective as a therapist, but I'm also talking about it from a personal experience as well. My life experience yeah, I've been estranged from my family for about 15 years. I've had, moments in between where I've kind of reconnected, but I've been pretty much, estranged for the last sort of 15, 16 years. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to these topics around particularly around mother-daughter relationships. Okay, right. So let's get into the content. So, as you know, if you've only just joined, the topic that I'm talking about today is what does safety look like, okay, for Black mothers and daughters. Okay, what does safety look like for black mothers and daughters in relationship? Okay, so there's something that I want to name first, actually, before I kind of really get into the crux of what safety is. And this is not to excuse anyone. This is not to um this is not about bashing mothers or anything like that. This content, the context of this conversation really has to be led with some context, okay? So we have to remember that a lot of our mothers, my parents' generation, those of us that, came from a history of enslavement and all of that kind of stuff, colonialism, whatever, their parenting style was shaped by all of that dysfunction. So yes, they've made choices about their parenting and all the rest of it to a certain extent, but also at the same time, you also have to give context to the situation and understanding that their parenting choices were shaped by racism, patriarchy, colonialism, homophobia, you know, excuse me, all of these things, okay, were modeled by systems of oppression, patriarchy, sexism. All of these things are going to have an impact on how our mothers parented their daughters. Okay. So I think it's important to, and we can do the work around, understanding the stuff around the systems. That's one part of the work. But another part of the work is actually being able to tell your truth. Okay. Being able to tell your truth about the actual relationship itself. That's really, really important. All right. So, yes, the other thing that I want to say about that is that as a result of our parents having to parent or our mothers having to mother from a place of survival, it's kind of shown up in the relationships as, dysfunctional attachments. We've not been able to attach to our mothers the way that we really want to because our mothers were in survival mode most of the time. The only reason why so many of us now are able to change the patterns around that is because we have a lot more awareness. We have a lot more awareness around what's going on. Obviously, there's a lot of content out there, a lot of therapeutic content now, so people can understand their relationships a lot more and why things are so difficult for so many black women and their mothers. Obviously, a lot more people are in therapy as well. I would say, actually, what? All of my clients have got issues, have got mother wounds. All of my clients, male and female, the ones that I work with, they all have mother wounds, painful relationships with their mothers, and they come to me because they've obviously seen my content and they want to really talk and unpack and understand. They want to understand why the relationship is so dysfunctional. They want to know how they can heal the relationship if it's possible, and if not, how they can really take care of themselves. What does, changing the contact boundaries look like, all that kind of stuff. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And, I think because so many of us are more in therapy now and are doing our own work and stuff like that, that we do have more choice now. We do have more choice. And not everybody ends up going no contact like I have. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it's an option that people have now. It's an option that people have now. So yeah, just wanted to give some context as like I was saying before around this, around the systemic piece is an important part of this conversation, but it needs to be dealt with as almost like a separate issue. We know that's going to have an impact on how mothers have mothered, how our black mothers have mothered us. But also there is something to be said also around mothers that have chosen not to get the support, that have not done their own healing work. If they choose not to do their own healing work, that's a choice that they've made, and therefore they have to still be held accountable for the consequences of them not doing that and the situation that can put the relationship under so much strain, the relationship between the mother and daughter under a lot more strain. Okay. So right. So now let's talk about the specific issues that can make the relationship safe or unsafe when it comes to black mother-daughter relationships. So first let's talk about nervous system safety. Okay. When you think about your mum, okay, you think about the relationship that you have with your mum, do you feel relaxed? If you just take a moment just to pause with me, just put your hand on your heart and just pause and just think about your mum. What happens internally? Do you feel afraid? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel anger? I'm just gonna have to pause this a minute, just 1 second. Sorry about that. My cat was just about to create a whole, I forgot to take her out of the room before I started recording. And she was about to create a whole heap of noise, and I didn't want to have any accidents in the in the room. So I just let her out. So sorry about that. Yeah, so I was talking about nervous system safety, okay, and asking you to kind of think about, just think about how you feel in your body, when you think about your mom, when you think about your relationship with your mom, do you feel calm? Are you happy to see her? Do you find yourself bracing for criticism or for her to shame you for whatever reason? Do you find yourself feeling like you need to perform in order to get her approval? These are all valid questions around how your body actually feels when you think about her, because sometimes we can when we're in denial about the relationship, we can tell ourselves intellectually about what we think the relationship is about, but the body doesn't lie. Okay, your nervous system is not going to lie when it comes to that relationship. So you might be trying to convince yourself intellectually that, oh yeah, I have a good relationship with my, and I hear that, so I hear that a lot, especially when clients first come into the room, although they know the relationship is dysfunctional and not healthy, there are still parts of them that are still trying to protect the mother. I think sometimes maybe they feel guilty about sharing some of the difficult feelings that they have around their mum. They might feel ashamed that they feel the way that they do around their mum because of social conditioning and stuff like that. They might have friends that have been gaslighting them, friends or other family members that have been gaslighting them, saying, "Oh, what? How come Why are you feeling like that about your mom? You've only got one." All that stuff that people normally say. So, there might be a part of them that is still trying to protect the fact that they do have a difficult relationship with their mum and they're sort of in denial about it. So, that's one part of it. But like I was saying, your body doesn't lie. Your body is not going to lie about the relationship. So if you feel anxious, if you feel afraid, if you find yourself, wanting to kind of contract internally, if you find yourself wanting to kind of avoid, talking to her or, picking up the phone, if you see her num, if you a good indication of this is if you see her number flash up on your phone, her name flash up on your phone, how do you feel when you see it? A lot of my clients will say that actually when I see a number on my phone, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to look. It's very activating to see the name on the phone. You're not looking forward to the conversation. You don't want to, it's going to take up a lot of bandwidth. It's going to take up a lot of your capacity to have that conversation with her. Your nervous system doesn't lie. Okay, your nervous system doesn't lie. And so it's important for you to be honest with yourself about um how you feel about that, about how your body responds to it, and what are the differences between what you think intellectually and how your body's responding. It's important to record those things because the your body is sharing information with you that is important for you to take notice of. Okay, if you and it might be that you can share that information with somebody that you trust, share it with your therapist. Share it with your therapist. Share it with your recovery sponsor. Share it with your trusted coach. Share it with friends that that can hold that can have the listening for you to have that conversation. A lot of people can't hold these conversations around mother wound. They can't hold those conversations, especially if they don't have that type of relationship with their own mothers. They just don't get it. They just don't get it. I stopped talking to people about this situation a long time ago, unless they can really understand it, because they just don't get it. They just don't get it, and they just don't have the capacity to be able to hold space for that conversation. So you need to be careful about who you have these types of conversations with, because you just a lot of the time you just end up being gaslit. Oh, you've only got one mom. she did her best, she's also a victim. And those things, may well be true. But alongside those conversations is also around the conversation that they still caused harm. There was still an impact that happened as a result of the mother's behavior and the mother's choices. Okay. So give yourself permission to listen to your nervous system. Okay. Give yourself permission to listen to your nervous system, and then you can begin to start having some making some choices about what's honestly going on between in the relationship that you need to really get clear about, that you really need to get clear about. So the next thing to think about when you're thinking about safety is, emotional safety. Okay, can you be your full adult self in that relationship? Something that I hear a lot with clients is that the mother cannot accept that their adult child is actually an adult, a grown ass woman. They can't accept it. And the reason why a lot of them don't want to accept it is because they don't want to give up control. They can maintain control over the adult child if if the child can only be a child in the relationship, if that makes sense. And there are, a lot of my clients, they can't be adults in that relationship. The mother cannot stand the fact that they can make their own choices, that they have opinions of their own. And a lot of times as well, I noticed that a lot of the mothers don't want their daughters to be adults because the mother doesn't want to be held accountable for her behavior. If the mother's been abusive, if they've been neglectful, if their behavior's been out of order for whatever reason, they want the adult child to remain. They want the dynamic to remain in a parent-child dynamic so that they can maintain the power dynamics in that relationship. They don't want the daughter to be an adult because then they can just say, well, I'm the parent and I get to say I can do what I want and you can't do anything about it. That's the attitude. I'm the parent. I gave birth to you, therefore I get to do what I want. I get to do what I want. And nine times out of ten, the adult child is just gonna not say anything because that's the dynamic that they grew up with, that's the dynamic that they're used to. And there's so much fear around losing that relationship. There's so much fear around abandonment. There's so much fear around disapproval that the adult child often would just accept that's the dynamic. If I'm going to stay in this relationship, then I have to accept the dynamic. It takes an awful lot of energy and work, despite what people might think that, stepping away from mothers or speaking up for yourself or whatever, they think it's a trend or whatever, but it's not. It takes an awful lot of work and it's very painful to actually make that decision to actually leave that relationship or set boundaries in that relationship or speak up for yourself. It is incredibly painful for daughters to be able to do that. But sometimes that's what needs to happen. If you want to because you're not going to be able to show up as an adult in your other friendships and relationships or as a mother, as a parent yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to show up fully as an adult in the other areas of your life if you're trapped in this dynamic with your mum because you're not allowed to be fully an adult, and that you being a child in that relationship is going to show up in other areas of your life, especially your romantic relationships. It's going to be very, very difficult because what you've then learned is in order for me to stay attached in a relationship, I have to be a child, I have to be small, I have to keep myself small. I'm not allowed to speak up. I'm not allowed to say if something hurt me. I'm not allowed to set boundaries around people saying things about me or about my body, about my hair or whatever. I have to keep quiet about all that. I have to always be the strong one in order for me to stay in that relationship. But if you can't be a full grown ass woman in the relationship that you have with your mom, then that relationship is unsafe. It's emotionally unsafe. There are still, mothers out there that still think that they can physically harm their adult children. They still think they can physically hit their children. And It's just insane. It's absolute insanity that parents are still think that it's okay to hit their children. There is no other dynamic where that is acceptable. If one adult hits another adult, you can be done for assault. But if an adult hits a child, then it's okay. It's okay. You hear so many stories I hear so many stories where where parents still think it's okay to hit their adult children. They hit their children when they're young and they hit them when they just think they have rights over their bodies, over their adult children's bodies. And it's completely unacceptable. And I say that with my full chest. It's unacceptable. What you're doing when you continue to do that, you're doing masses work. That's what you're doing. Okay? I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. If you are a mother and you're still hitting your children, you're doing masses work. That's what you're doing. You're recycling racist, oppressive systems onto your children under the disguise of, oh, discipline or whatever. It's not discipline. If your partner, okay, if you had a partner that was violent to you for exactly the same reason that you're hitting that child, you wouldn't accept it. I remember I said this to my mum one time. I said, would you accept it if dad treated you the way that you treated your kids? If dad hit you for the same reasons that you hit us kids, would you like it? She said no. For some reason the dynamic is different when it comes to children, which is absolute insanity. It's absolute insanity. And one of the things that I do with my clients in session or over time, part of the therapeutic process is working with them to learn about their own identity as an adult and to give themselves permission to kind of grieve the loss of what they didn't get from their mothers, and then to empower them to actually become their full adult self, and to to work with them for them to explore what that means for them. What do they need? And this is where the parts work becomes really important, because their child self is going to have different needs. And what actually happens is they have to then start to understand what it means to self-parent. Their adult self has to learn how to take care of the younger part of themselves that's still in that painful dynamic with the mother. Their grown-ass adult self has to learn how to take care of the wounded younger self that is still in that painful dynamic with the mother. That's the work that we do in therapy. So then the child then, she becomes untangled. She becomes we kind of untangle the enmeshment that happens with the mother so that then the younger part, the inner child or inner children, because there might be different ages that are enmeshed with the mother, the inner children then become part of the unit with the adult child. So she then begins to embrace and accept and love on all of the younger parts of herself that were wounded, breaking that enmeshment that's tangled up with the mother. And then she starts to look after that child in the way that the mother could not. And that's where the integration and the healing happens by learning how to self-parent. Okay. And the mother might not like that because that means that there's going to be boundaries in place. It means that, the adult child is going to start making their own decisions. They might decide that they want to distance themselves a little bit. They might decide that they refuse to have certain conversations because there's new boundaries put in place. All of these things are all really important parts of the healing process. What happens when the adult children start to reclaim autonomy and be really clear about their emotional safety. Okay. They're really, really clear about their emotional safety. Okay. This stuff is really, really important. Um, Something else that's really, really important around this topic. The next one is about power and hierarchy. Okay. And this idea, I mean, it's kind of what I was just saying before about the mother-child dynamic. This power dynamic is what keeps so many people in pain because their child selves feel like they have got no choice but to kind of engage in this dysfunctional power dynamic with their mothers that have been abusive or that have been neglectful, very dysfunctional. And you have to ask yourself when it comes to like the power dynamics and stuff like that, when you say no, if you're going to say no to your mum about something, is it honored? Does she honor the fact that you've said no as an adult? Or does she still maintain a sense of control and what she says goes? You're not allowed to say that. You're only allowed to say no if she thinks it's okay. Is your mother still treating you? Does she treat you like a person or does she treat you like property? Okay. Does your mother treat you like a person, like a full grown ass woman, human being, or does she treat you like property? You have to do this for her. It's non-negotiable. Your feelings don't matter. You're basically her property. You're an object. You're an extension of her. And what she says goes. Are all of these things part of the dynamic? Is obedience to her still expected, just like a child? Are you expected to obey? Okay. Are you expected to obey? These are all really important things for you to think about the relationship. Does she weaponize religion and spirituality as a form of control to keep you in that position of being a child? And that might trigger a few people, me saying that. But I hear this stuff all the time. People will be quoting scripture, people will be doing all of these kind of things to control the child, to control the child, and to absolve themselves of any accountability for their dysfunctional behavior, for their abusive behavior. If you want to feel safe in that relationship, that the as an adult, there has to be some equality in that relationship, and she needs to respect your choices as an adult, even if she doesn't agree with it. Your mum cannot agree with the choices that you make, but if you're a grown-ass adult, it's not her business to be telling you what you can. She can have an opinion about it, but it's not her. Um, she doesn't have the right to try and control how you live your life. She does not have the right to control how you live your life. Your choices as an adult need to be respected. Okay? Your choices as an adult need to be respected. The next one on the list is cultural and racial safety. And this is the one that is so important for us as Black people. Okay, because when we think about the mother-daughter relationship within the context of, Blackness, I hear so many of my clients talk about how their mothers used to shame them, the colorism conversations that come out, they'd be too black or too this or too that. The mothers would make really disgusting comments to their children about um shadism and colorism. They talk about their bodies, they'd be talking about their hair. There's so many things, even things like sexuality and stuff like that as well. If the child is queer, lesbian, gay, whatever, the mother's going to be shaming the child, or quite often the mother will shame the child again. This is all part of the child's identity, but the mother cannot accept it. The mother cannot accept that they're a separate person with their own needs and with their own identities and with their own desires and with their own needs. It's almost as if the mother will only allow the child to have needs if they benefit them. if it benefits them, then it's okay. But if it doesn't benefit them somehow, then somehow it's wrong, and they'll be punished for it with silence or violence or whatever. These do not make the relationship safe. These things do not make the relationship safe at all. Sometimes, there'll be parents who will try and shame the child into, assimilating. There were certain things that they'll say, and I understand that, a lot, especially my parents' generation, they come from that colonial thinking type thing. I remember having a conversation with my mum, and she was saying that the only thing that they learned when they're at school, in Jamaica, was about the Queen and all that kind of. They taught them all the colonial bullshit. That they taught them that whiteness was kind of like the right thing to do, and all of the rest of it. They taught them that's how they were raised, and so in the name of trying to do the best for us, they're trying to teach us that assimilation is a form of survival. I understand they did it to survive. I understand that they did it as a form of, in order to protect themselves. There is that element of it when it comes to assimilation. But you have to be able to make the decision for yourself about what feels comfortable for you. It's not your parents' um choice to decide how you want to show up around all of that stuff. Because it's painful to deny yourself. Whether it's out of survival or not, that's going to take its toll on your nervous system, having to deny who you are, having to keep quiet about who you are, especially if there is things like queerness and stuff that's involved in that conversation. There become layers of having to abandon yourself in order to stay in that relationship. So you have to then ask yourself, can you fully be yourself as a black person? For me, as a queer black woman, can I fully be myself with my family without having to, keep myself small? And the answer is no, I can't. No, I can't. So I then have to make the decision about what that's going to look like in terms of how I engage, you know? And it's really important for you to have those conversations with yourself, truthful conversations about the experiences that you've had around these things, because we internalize so much of this stuff consciously and unconsciously, and it's painful. It's painful. And I don't think really that a lot of us really understand the impact that a lot of that stuff has had, on us, on our identity as Black people. I remember being teased, for having full lips. I remember my mum teasing me about having full lips, These are things that are going to have an impact on how we feel about ourselves as Black women, and how we feel about our Black features and all of that kind of stuff. It took me a long time to kind of start to accept who I am as a queer Black woman. It took me a long time to kind of accept that. But now I accept it, and I don't apologize for it. And I won't spend time with people that don't accept me for all of those parts. Like, it's funny because the more of this work that I've done, my circle has got smaller over the years. But what I see actually is that although my circle has got smaller, the relationships are much richer. They're much deeper. And I spend time with a lot more people that have a lot more integrity, because they're doing the same work as me. They're doing the same work as me. And this is the other thing that's important when you're doing this work, is that you have to find your community, you have to find your people, because if you decide for whatever reason that you're going to detach from your mother because she's not respecting your boundaries or whatever, it's much harder to, it's much easier to detach from something like that if you have a healthy, loving, nurturing community to attach to, rather than just detaching from your mum. You need to have a healthy place to attach to. Otherwise, you're just detaching from her into isolation. And you might end up self-shaming. You might end up thinking, oh my gosh, maybe it's not that bad. It's going back into denial. Or maybe it's not that bad. Maybe there's something wrong with me. And you end up gaslighting yourself because at the end of the day, you're a human being. Of course, you want connection. Of course, you want to feel connected. You're a human being. Human beings are wired for connection, even if the relationship is dysfunctional. There's a primal part of us that wants to connect with other human beings. And if you don't have your own tribe, if you don't have your own community, I have loads of queer friends and stuff now as well, because then it's important for me to be able to see myself as a queer black woman. I need to be able to see myself. So that's an important part of this process is you have to find your community. You need to be able to find your people. And this is the reason why I'm doing this workshop on the 7th of March around managing Mother's Day. Because like I was saying before, unless you're actually in this situation, it's very difficult for people to understand how painful Mother's Day can be for a lot of people. And a lot of all of my clients struggle with Mother's Day, all of them. They all struggle with it. And there's a sense of shame that can sometimes come from how wounded black daughters feel about Mother's Day. And so what normally happens is they tend to isolate. They isolate because they don't want to have that conversation. It's very painful for them to have that conversation with themselves, and they don't really. A lot of them they isolate. They don't really want to have the conversation with other people because they just don't feel understood. They just don't feel understood. So, when you come to the half day, it's a half day retreat. It's in Brixton. There's two workshops. The first workshop is going to be about understanding your relationship to Mother's Day. We'll talk about what is the Black mother wound and all of that kind of stuff. But then you'll also have an opportunity to think about what self-care is going to look like for you before, during, and after Mother's Day. Even if you don't want to celebrate Mother's Day. If you don't want to celebrate Mother's Day, maybe your mother has passed. Maybe she's not here anymore. There's different types of grief that come with Mother's Day. But even if you decide that you're not, this is not about celebrating Mother's Day. This is not about pushing through your feelings so that you can celebrate Mother's Day. This is not about you denying yourself, abandoning yourself so that you can kiki and skin deep with your mom when it's just not that's just not the relationship. That's not what this event is about. This event is about honoring your truth around Mother's Day, okay? And then looking at how you can actually care for yourself, being honest with yourself before Mother's Day about how you want to spend that time. Even whether you spend that time with your mother or not, it's about teaching you what you can do to take care of yourself, to take care of your inner children. Okay, and I'm going to be doing another podcast on, what your inner children need from you around Mother's Day. That's going to be the one that I'm going to be doing next week. But your inner children need you. Okay, they need you to listen to them. Okay, so there'll be tools. We'll have conversations about your relationship to Mother's Day, and you get tools and stuff like that to kind of work through how to take care of yourself before Mother's Day, how to take care of yourself on Mother's Day itself, what boundaries you need, all that kind of stuff, and also post Mother's Day. And this is something that people often forget. There's the leading up to Mother's Day, which quite often people are in a lot of anxiety. Then Mother's Day arrives and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Should I buy a card? How much time should I spend with her? They feel really anxious about, is she going to shame me? What are her expectations? Am I going to have to shrink myself? Am I going to have to kind of, sit with her through gritty teeth throughout the whole day? Am I going to have to sit with her at the dinner table while she's shaming me? All of these things are questions you know, that these are issues that clients will bring. to session, leading up to Mother's Day. But people also need to think about what happens after Mother's Day, because quite often after Mother's Day, a lot of people can, they have kind of like afterburn. They can have afterburn, on Mother's Day, and that, they might crash out after Mother's Day. This nervous system might be kind of braced before Mother's Day and during Mother's Day, but after Mother's Day, your nervous system might actually crash. So you might need you need tools and stuff to think about. How are you going to look after yourself after Mother's Day? All that kind of stuff. We'll talk about all of those things in the first workshop. The second workshop, okay, is something soothing. We're going to learn how, I'm going to show you how to make um like herbal bath tea bags. So you're going to make these herbal bath tea bags with chamomile leaves and lavender and Epsom salts and all this. So that you're going to have these really big tea bags that you'll put in the bath. And then you can use them to soothe yourself. So I'll also be using like what should I call it? Essential oils and stuff like that. So you'll make these beautiful tea bags that are bigger than, obviously bigger than normal tea bags, so that you can put them in the bath. So you can use them maybe, after Mother's Day to kind of soothe yourself. These are all these are my heal and chill. I call them my heal and chill half day retreats that I do. And so if you're interested in joining me for that, it's on the 7th of March on a Saturday in Brixton. You can go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Okay. So yeah, it's really important that's the reason why I do these spaces, because you need to be understood. You deserve to be heard. Okay. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be understood, and you deserve to be cared for. Okay, your adult self and your inner children deserve to be seen and heard and witnessed. Okay, and I'm here to do that for you. Whether you want to come to the half day retreat, or whether you're looking for a therapist and you want to start doing this work, you deserve to be seen and heard. Okay, you deserve to be seen and heard. So, the last one that I really want to talk about is accountability and repair. And this one is probably the most difficult one, the one that actually this is for a lot of people, this is kind of like the nail in the coffin for a lot of people, whether they're going to be estranged, whether they're going to go no contact or not. Because I feel a lot of my clients, and for me as well, after years and years and years of trying to talk about how you feel, trying to set boundaries, not being respected, being gaslit, you've got the, other family members trying to gaslight you into doing this, that, and the other people, other family members enabling your mom, all that kind of stuff. There's just no repair. There's no accountability and no repair. So what normally happens in that situation is that, the adult child ends up being exhausted. They end up in a lot of pain, and they have to then make the difficult decision. They can't stay in that relationship, because they have to accept that actually the apology is not going to happen. And when we talk about apologies, I'm not talking about the word. Okay, I'm talking about change behavior. It's manipulation if there's no change behavior. Okay. Apologies without change behavior is manipulation. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that would just think saying the word sorry is enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. Change behavior is what the apology is actually a verb. Okay. The apology is actually a verb. The mother needs to be able to understand and to be able to say. Okay, she needs to be able to have the capacity and the room to admit that some of her choices were wrong, that she caused harm. And two things can be true at once. Yes, as a mother, you might have done your best. Yes, as a mother, you may have been a victim of your own abuse. Yes, as a black mother, you're also a victim of the system. All of those things are true and probably are true. But two things can be true at once. All of those things that I just said can be true, and you can have also caused harm to your child. And if you're not willing to explore those things, okay, if you're not willing to be open to sitting with your adult daughter and sincerely apologizing for your behavior through changed behavior, not just through verbal bullshit, then your child is not going to trust you. Your child is not going to trust you. And this is you know, for a lot of adult children, I remember when I started going to therapy, I thought that I could do the work for me and my mum. I thought I could do my mum's work for her. I thought if I'm, you know, if I do enough work in therapy, if I go to recovery and do all my own personal work and whatever, then, you know, somehow I will be able to tolerate the fact that my mum that she can't repair the relationship. But it takes two people to repair a relationship. It takes two people. Both parties have to be willing and open and honest about the relationship. And there has to be capacity on both sides to be open to repairing the relationship. There has to be capacity for people to be able to say, I was wrong to do that. There has to be capacity for you to say, I shouldn't have done that. Not with excuses and justification, but with genuine honesty. That's what love really is. Love is being able to repair. If you want a relationship with your child, you have to be open to having those honest conversations. It's not love if you're gaslighting your child. It's not love if you're constantly justifying yourself. It's not love if you're treating your child like a child and you're not listening to her. It's not love. It's not love if you expect her to be silent because you don't have the listening for that conversation. So you need her to be silent in order for you to be comfortable. That's not love. It can be very manipulating to throw that word out there that you love your child, but your behavior speaks otherwise. It's not love. Love means you're open and willing to have a conversation, an honest conversation about repair, and that you're not going to dismiss your child's feelings. There's a reason why your child feels the way that she feels. And yes, the child is now an adult, but she is entitled to her feelings. She is entitled to her feelings. And sometimes, you know, you mothers need to you need to keep quiet and stop centering yourself. Okay, and this is probably going to piss a few people off. A lot of you mothers need to stop centering yourself in the conversation and open your ears and listen to your child. Listen to your daughter. If you want a relationship with her, you have to be willing to close your mouth and open your ears. Okay? You have to be willing to close your mouth and open your ears. And you're not listening to respond. Okay? You're listening to understand. There's two different things. You're not listening to your daughter to respond so that you can give her more justification and gaslighting and all this that the hearts that and cold fat, as my mum would say. It's none of that. You're listening to understand, not respond. Okay? The thing is in this dynamic is that, and this is this where the systemic part, you know, comes in with all of this as well. Like there's all of this hurt between the inside the relationship. At the end of the day, it's these oppressive systems, it's slavery, it's colonialism. Those are the bigger picture things that have created the dynamics in this relationship. Overall, those are the things that have played a massive role in the breakdown of black mother and daughter relationships. Because a lot of us are unhealed. We're not doing our own work, so therefore it makes it very difficult to do any work around repairing. It makes it very, very difficult. But we also have to understand that again, there are two truths that are happening with this. Yes, the systemic part is a real truth, and that is the reason why it is difficult to repair. But also at the same time, there are choices that you can make around your own healing. That's where the power is. Instead of always blaming the system or blaming, yes, those things are real, but the way that you take back your autonomy in your mother-daughter relationship is by going to therapy. Go to group therapy. Go to family therapy together if you can. Do individual therapy, do family therapy, do what you need to do. That's where the liberation is when it comes to mother-daughter relationships. Because sometimes you need a third party to help you unpack it. But unless you're willing to do your own work individually and together, the relationship is it's going to be difficult for that relationship to survive. It's going to be really difficult for that relationship to survive because there was a lot of hurt individually, intergenerationally, systemically, collectively, relationally. There's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of layers to this. But none of it is going to change unless you start taking responsibility first and foremost for yourself. There comes a point in therapy in your own healing journey that you have to just kind of accept that your mum is not good. She might not be willing to do her work. She might not have capacity for it. You have to start doing the work for yourself rather than externalizing that you can only do what you can do if she does this. I can't move on unless she apologizes. I can't do A, B, and C unless my mum gives me this, that, and the other. I can't love myself unless my mum loves me first. That's the child in you speaking. That's the child in you speaking. And the child in you needs your adult self. Again, I'll talk more about that next week. The child in you needs your adult self. If anything that I've shared with you today has resonated, send me an email, info@yardofgreatness.com. If you've got any questions about anything that I've shared, you can email me. If you're interested in joining us for the Managing Mother's Day half-day retreat on the 7th of March, then you can go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you found the content that I've shared with you useful on today's podcast. Um, yeah, if you're ready to do the deeper work in therapy, again, you can find details about how you can work with me on the website via the link in my bio. Okay? Take care of yourself. If you're a wounded daughter watching this and you have a difficult relationship with your mum, take care of yourself. Okay? Take care of yourself because you deserve to be seen and heard. You deserve to be seen and heard. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.